Well, good morning, everyone. How are you? We don't have anybody in the chat at the moment, but that's okay. Just got to check something, make sure it's working. Yep, that's all good. All right, fabulous. And a little live banner just came up, so people will start to get notified. Okay, we'll just hang around for 1 second. Oh, there we go. We've got a few people on now. G'day, MJ, and g'day, Nicholas. How are you both? And we've got Philip. Welcome on board. And Axark. Hello, Axark. Okay, while we're waiting for people to join, I'll just roll the intro.
Well, g'day, curd nerds. G'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds.
Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, welcome to episode 52 of Ask the Cheeseman. The show is where you can ask your home cheese making questions. Anything burning or troubling you during your home cheese making endeavours. Just a quick shout out to start with to two new patrons. I'd like to say thanks for your support to Annie and to Justin. Very kind donations there on ongoing support. So thank you very much for that. Moving right along, the video this weekend will be Same on Cell. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And then I'm still working on the raclette. And we'll have a feta taste test as well, which won't be too far away as well. And this week, I also launched my vlog channel. So if you search for Gavin Weber Vlog, or Kim might be able to find it there and put the link up, that'd be cool. Okay, just we'll shout out to g'day to Trevor, MJ. Yes, I did receive those subtitles. Thank you very much. Really appreciated for the chatter video. Danny, thank you very much. Reflo, 13BM90, g'day. Andrew, Greek translation, but I can't understand that. But hi from Hellas. G'day from Jack. And Franco. And Nicholas says, right, first question. Let's go from there. So Nicholas says, can you talk about the huge variety of bacteria cultures where there are to buy? How much a difference can mesophilic and thermophilic varieties create? Well, there are actually many molds and stuff, molds and starter cultures, and I actually did a video about molds and cultures and the basic ones, and I think it went for at least 15 minutes long, so I went into some pretty big depth. So, Kim, if you can find the video about starter cultures and pop the link up there for Nicholas, that would be absolutely fantastic. Axe Stark says, according to you, which is the best cheese? Well, this comes up every show. They're all the best. Every single cheese. I haven't come across a cheese I didn't like. So, each in their own subtle little way, they are delights to be had. G'day to Chase, Lisa. Thanks, MJ. That'd be fantastic if you could do that. Really appreciate anybody doing translations. In the description of each video, I put down the little link for subtitles, captions, and titles. Very welcome for anybody to submit those subtitles or captions if they have any spare time, or if they feel like they want to contribute in some little way, and can't offer any donations via the little super chatty thing here. Don't forget, during the show, if it gets too hectic, like it looks like it's starting to now, you can always donate via super chat button down there. I think it's as low as $2 Australian or $2 US, something like that. Anyway, we'll get back to the questions. Andrew says, have you managed to research the making of Jutland Blue? Unfortunately, I have not. I'll put that on my list. But I do have a Wicked Blue coming up very soon, which I did mention was same on sale. So hold on to your horses there, and I think you'll find that quite a delightful cheese. It smells nice anyway, and looks pretty good. Franco says, is cream cheese really cheese? Most indeed it is. Cream cheese is fairly simple to make. Got a cream cheese video there somewhere. It's just a case of putting your milk to the right temperature. I think it's pretty low. It's about 29 Celsius. You add the starter culture to it. Give that a good stir. And then you add a few drops of rennet to help the starter culture work a little bit. And it's called a lactic acid set cheese. And then you leave it at room temperature overnight, and it basically coagulates the whole mass. And then you gently scoop the curds into a butter muslin, which is a really tight weave cheesecloth, and then let it hang for about 12 to 18 hours, and you've got some of the most amazing cream cheese. The less time you let it hang, the milder the cheese is. The longer you let it hang, the stronger the cheese flavour is. But yeah, cream cheese is definitely a real cheese. Okay, thanks, MJ, no probs. Vizio, I'll translate to English for you. That'll be fantastic. Yeah, I have enough trouble translating my own English, seeing I have Australian English to worry about. Okay, Nigel says, I've been following your show for a while. You're an excellent teacher. Thanks for all your lessons. Thank you very much, Nigel. Raphael, I think that says hello from Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Well, g'day, Raphael. Nicholas says, I can't seem to keep the mould off my Monterey Jack. So I'll cut it open to see what is edible. Should I completely remove the mould if it has gotten inside the wheel? Yeah, if it's got past the surface rind, most definitely try and cut that out. Hopefully you've been washing the cheese. If it has had a mold issue, washing the cheese with a salt and vinegar brine solution, that usually gets rid of most mold or tames it down anyway. So hopefully that's what you've been doing. But yeah, if you've got any black mold on there and it started to creep in, then you can cut it out. Andrew says, just eating the Wensleydale and cranberry, an excellent cheese. My wife really likes it. Well done, Andrew. I think cranberries do go with cheese very well. And Wensleydale is one of those cheeses that do take to adding fruit bits to it. So that's quite good. Michelle says, Gavin, have you started testing or making marble or Colby Jack cheese yet? Unfortunately not. I've been rather busy here. We've just got back from our holiday a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and we've just been inundated with orders for our shop at Little Green Workshops. So we've been struggling to catch up, struggling to restock the shop full of all those cheesy delights that everybody wants to buy. So unfortunately not yet, Michelle, but I will get there. My name is John, and I'd like to ask you why we need the cultures. Good question, John. You need starter cultures when milk has been pasteurized, because during the pasteurization process, which is heating the milk up to 63 degrees or 73 degrees and holding it for a period of time and then cooling it down rapidly, that kills all the natural lactic bacteria that resides or is breeding within the milk. And it also kills off things like tuberculosis. It also kills off E. coli, listeria. So there's some other bacterias that it kills off. Now, because all the bacteria is dead and you want to make cheese, you've got to add back the good lactic bacteria back into the milk, so it acidifies the cheese enough so that rennet can set, and then later on during the maturing process, those bacteria die and the enzymes left behind start to react on the fats within the cheese and proteins and makes the flavours we know and love. So long question, a long answer, but short question, but thank you for that. Okay, Naosi, I think that's how you say it. Does cheesecake actually contain any cheese, and what type? Cheesecakes normally contain a processed cheese called Philadelphia cream cheese. It's not heavily processed, but I think it's about 60% cheese and 30% something else. But you can make cheesecake with real cream cheese, as I've just mentioned before. Okay, Axdark says, when did you face the difficulty whilst making cheese? Like, which was most hard to make? I would say provolone was the hardest cheese I've ever made, because it takes so long for the curds to become acidic so that you can actually stretch the curds. It takes up to 9 hours or sometimes even overnight for the pH of the curds to drop rapidly. Okay. Elizabeth, hello, my friend and my follower of your channel here in Brazil. G'day, Elizabeth. Hello to everybody in Brazil and Mexico and everywhere else. Jay Walker, does official Stilton use Rock 40 or some other proprietary strain of mould? Official Stilton, as far as I can tell, there's only a few strains of what's known as Penicillium Roque 40. There's some milder strains. There's green, there's blue, and there's some stronger strains as well. But all use the same base mould to create those blue veins within cheese. Franco says thanks. Andrew, waiting for Wensleydale and ginger. I tasted it as I vac sealed it and I blew my socks off. Might have overdone the ginger. Sounds like a pretty cool cheese. Mohammed says, can I make from camel milk any cheese? Yeah, you can make a pretty basic cheese. Camel milk doesn't tend to coagulate like cow's milk does. It tends to have a really soft curd set when using rennet. Best you can make is a yogurt out of it, and then strain that through butter muslin, and then you'll have a yogurt cheese, which is known as labna. And that's a traditional Middle Eastern cheese made from camel's milk. So, yes, you can make cheese from camel's milk, but not the kind of varieties that you can with cow's milk. Ron, how you doing, Gavin? Hello, Ron. My bel paese, I have vacuumed now for the third time. Every time the bag gets loose and the cheese keeps moisture. Any idea? Yes. I believe that somewhere in your cheese there are gas-producing bacteria. They won't be harmful. There's some of the lactic coccus strains that you may have used are producing carbon dioxide, and that tends to make the bag loose and not as tight vacuum as you would expect normally. And I've seen some cheeses expand like a balloon because they're producing so much gas. Not to be worried about too much, remembering that with bel paese, you don't mature it very long anyway. You're only maturing it for, if I remember rightly, 3 weeks in the cheese in the normal refrigerator. So you must have vac-packed it for a reason. Was it getting mold on it or something? So, okay. Nigel says, can we add annatto to all cheese or just cheddar cheese? It's your choice. You can annatto to anything you like. It won't affect the taste of your cheese unless you tip in half a bottle. But yeah, it's tasteless, odorless. It just makes the cheese look yellow. But, say if you added a natto to, I'll say, feta. It just wouldn't look right. There's certain cheeses you do and certain cheeses you don't. So all of the cheddar family style cheeses, most of them have a natto added these days. Even shredded mozzarella that I've seen in supermarkets and stuff like that, that's all got a natto added to it as well. It just deceives the buyer into thinking that the cheese is more creamier and has a higher fat content when it really doesn't. Okay, where are we back to? Um, Let me think. Where we up to? Sarchin's Kitchen. Hello, Sarchin. Isaac Gaming. Hello again. Michelle says, have you made any cheese soups with your cheese that you can share? Yes, well, not a cheese soup per se, but um, I've made French onion soup where I've uh, grated on top Gruyere, which the homemade stuff, and absolutely amazing. So the cheesy bit on the top of the soup really adds to the flavour of the French onion soup. Absolutely amazing. As far as cheese sauces, I've made a lot of the cheeses in the When Cheese Fails video that has got so many views. A lot of the blue cheeses that I made there, I basically turned them into blue cheese sauce. So fantastic with red meat. It makes the most delightful. You start off with a basic roux, and then you thicken it up, add a bit more milk, and make it into the sauce, and then add in the blue cheese, and you've got yourself a nice, strong, fairly strong blue cheese sauce. And that is just amazing. It tastes absolutely fantastic. So there's a couple of options there, Michelle. I haven't made a cheese soup per se, but there's some variations for you. Axtark, can you make a video on how to make cheese in an ancient manner? I have been thinking about this, but they did a better job over at Townsend's, which is a really good historical YouTube channel, focusing on 18th and 19th century North America, Canada and United States, or early United States, the colonies. And there's quite a few videos there where they're making cheese old style way. So, yeah, next time I get my hands on some raw milk, I can just basically make a basic white cheese. Pretty simple to do. Rennet may be a bit of an issue, so I'll have to find a natural rennet that I can use without slaughtering a calf or anything like that. Okay, I'm fairly way behind here where I'm up to. I think I missed about 20 comments here somehow. I don't know how I did that. Trevor said, sorry about this, I'm just backtracking. Trevor said, I've been looking for Comté and Epois de Bourgogne recipes everywhere and have had no luck. Are you familiar with these cheeses and had a chance of finding a recipe? I think I've got a recipe for Comté. Epois, I'm not too sure. But I'll have a look around and I'll put them on the list. So many cheeses to make, not enough time. I don't know if Kim's going to like the Epois or Epis. Wow, I don't know how to pronounce it, but because it's a very stinky red cheese. NKY says, wish you would be more active on artisan cheesemakers on Facebook. I see you're a member there like me. I'm a member of about six cheese-making Facebook groups. Making videos of making cheese kind of takes up most of my time, so I can't be that active. That's why I had this show, to answer people's questions instead of... And I get about 15 emails a day asking me cheese-making questions. I just cannot keep up by myself. So apologies to anybody who sees me as members of groups, Facebook groups or the like. I just can't keep up. I just don't have enough time. I'd be here 24/7 just answering questions if that was the case. You never have any cheese videos. Christopher says, I just want to say thank you very much for what you do. I'm from Wisconsin, which is America's dairyland and cheese capital, and you give a new life to the entrance towards our famous trade. Oh, thanks very much, Christopher. More of us are looking into getting into this trade. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. Nigel says, I've added spring onions, dried cranberries to queso fresco. All turned out delicious. Is there a flavour that I can add to this cheese for more variation? Yeah, definitely. Chilies is a good one. Dried chilies, I've done that before. And dried apricots gives it a sweet flavour as well. Not too overpowering, but there's a certain sweetness to it. So that might work, Nigel. Anyway, I'll get back to the questions where I was before. S says, any options for people who don't have access to molds? I think you're meaning the molds, as in the ones you add to the cheese, not the molds as in the baskets. Yeah, there is. You can grow your own Penicillium roque 40 on rye bread. It naturally seems to want to grow on rye bread. And you get a blue mold growing on that, and you just scrape off a piece and you add it to your milk, and then you've got Penicillium roque 40. If you use kefir grains, you will get Geotrichum candidum, which is the cousin to Penicillium candidum, and that will give you a white mold on the outside. So there's a couple of suggestions. Doug says, my curd breaks apart when I stir them. My rennet is fresh, and I have used a little more with better results. It still crumbles a bit as I lift the curd. Do you think more calcium chloride would help? The rennet and the calcium chloride amount should be fairly the same when you're adding it. If you add too much calcium chloride, it tends to bitter the final cheese. If you add too much rennet, it's the same thing. It'll bitter the cheese as well. So that's a bit of a problem. Yeah, look, just up both just a little bit. The milk may be not have as much fat as you would think it would. Okay. Right, so, oh, thank you, Trevor, for the super chat. Appreciate it. I'll get back up to where I was. Let me think. Burak says, Hi, I need yogurt video. Can you help me? Yes, there is a yogurt video. Now, I can just hear Kim answering a delivery at the door, so she won't be able to put it up just yet. But if you go back to the channel, and there's a little search box on the right-hand side, right over there, then just search for yogurt, and there's a tangy yogurt recipe on how to make it from scratch. Okay, Shlomo says, hi, Gavin, can you make any cheese from sheep's milk? I would think you probably could. The yield is massive. It's like 25% yield on sheep's milk because there's so many milk solids in the milk, as I've discovered recently. Yeah, well, I've made so far, traditional feta, which you saw on the weekend. I've made pecorino romano. I've made a ricotta salata, all out of sheep's milk. I couldn't see why you wouldn't, but the flavour will be different. The flavour of the different milks as they mature have a totally different flavour profile. So you can make them, but they won't turn out like they're supposed to, if that makes sense. I suck a game. Have you had a Kasu Marzu question yet? No, you're the first. And I know it's for shits and giggles because you're one of the regular people on the channel. So, no, just none of that. Waldo Ock says, can you offer a Celsius-only thermometer? I cannot find them in America, and I don't know how to use Fahrenheit. Yeah, if you pop into our shop and have a look at the cheese thermometer, it's got Celsius and Fahrenheit. Or you can go to Amazon, and I don't have an affiliate link or anything, and go and look for a Thermapen. That's Thermapen. And you can set it to Fahrenheit or Celsius. And it's a probe, little red handled thing about that long. You've probably seen it in many of my videos. It's a little probe. You can set it to Celsius or Fahrenheit. No problems at all. Yep, I agree. I suck at gaming. Magic the Gathering. Is it just me, or is milk for cheese making expensive? No, I've successfully made milk from, cheese from standard milk. So milk that's the absolute cheapest. It's not the best cheese, but you can make cheese from it. But unhomogenized milk, yeah, it's strange because unhomogenized milk is less processed than what pasteurized homogenized milk is, and is less energy intense to make it, and yet they charge more for it because it's a premium product. Go figure that. Anyway, Magic the Gathering, can you make a video on how to make a cheese harp? That would be a wicked video indeed. Unfortunately, I didn't make the cheese harps that I use. They were made by a lovely gentleman, David Dawson, over in Canada, and he made them for me and sent them through to me as a gift for all the cheese making videos that I made. So there are instructions on Little Green Cheese. If you just go there and look for a cheese harp or curd cutter or something like that, which is that URL there, littlegreencheese.com, and you'll find the instructions and pictures on how to make it. Okay. Kylie Loran, I think that's how you pronounce it. Other codes on cultures such as MOT092 based on a standard, or are they manufacturer supply codes? There is no standard that I can find. They're based on what the manufacturers decide to call their cheese. So, yeah, bit of a weird one. So basically, it's very hard to figure out what equivalents are what. The best you can do is look for, most of them will say what starter culture strains they have in each of the packets, and then you can kind of match the cheeses. I made a cheese culture video that kind of talks about that as well. So you can check that out. It's on the channel there. Andrew said, use carrots for colour in my first cheddar as I hadn't got any annatto. It worked. Yes, it does, Andrew, but it gives a little bit of a carroty taste to the cheese. I have tried that. Another thing they used to use in, not in the Middle Ages, but when they first started making cheddar, was they used safflowers. So not sunflowers, but safflowers. It's a reddish petal. And you soak that in water, and that makes the water go red. But when you add it to milk, it makes the cheese go yellow. So safflowers are another alternative if you don't want to use, or you can't find, annatto. Okay. Michelle says, I think if it's not too cold, you can get a calf stomach that they use for menu do at any Mexican market. Yeah, you got to get the right calf stomach. There are 4 stomachs in a calf. You've got to get the last one, which is known in most butcher circles as the rennet bag. But yes, you can get that. Okay, Andrew says again, using boiled stinging nettles instead of rennet for vegetarian set. Yes, that works, as well as the flower petals from the cardoon thistle. That works very well as well. And I have even tried fig sap, but that doesn't set very well. It does set, but it doesn't set as well as I hoped, and it was a little bit bitter as well. Okay, and Lisa says at a slaughterhouse, yes, you can. Most butchers who do the whole animal may be able to put one aside and salt it for you. But yeah, that works if you want to get some real rennet. Nigel says, do you have a tutorial on how to make mother culture for the starter culture? Can you talk a little about different types of culture and the cheeses you make? Nigel, I've already got a video on that, mate. And Kim, if you're back, I don't know where you are, but you can probably pop a link in there somewhere about the starter cultures video. And I don't have one on mother culture, except when I made, this is tricky, I made tangy yogurt as a starter culture for a provolone video that I never put together because the cheese didn't work out as expected, but it certainly did make the cheese taste like yogurt. So, no, I don't make mother cultures. I use DVI or direct vat inoculated starter cultures. A lot less fuss, a lot easier to make. Mother cultures, you have to breed them at the right temperature and then freeze them so you can use them later on. But DVI, easy to store them in the freezer. Okay. Damien says, hey, Gavin, what's the best way to clean your cheesecloths? What I do, Damien, is pop them into, or try and get any bits off that are on them. And if you can't do that, I just leave them in a small a bowl with hot water and a little bit of vinegar, and that kind of dissolves the cheesy bits. And then I put them straight into our washing machine, our front loader washing machine, put it on the quicker cycle, cold water, and have in the rinse, so for the final rinse, the fabric softener, instead of fabric softener, put in half a cup of vinegar, and then go and hang them in the sun, and they're perfect. And then next time when you want to use them, you boil them with all the utensils when you're doing the sanitization. So hopefully that works out. That works for me. So that's a nice quick way, and you don't get any fluff or any bits remaining, any contamination. So that works very well. Belgian Swede says, great show, Gavin. I made Gruyere and I used a maturation box. Approximately 2 months in, the cheese started to swell. I vac packed it after 6 months. It was very wholly possible late blowing. Yes, it probably might have been contaminated somehow. Because normally if you get an early blow, that's it's called coliform infection, but it doesn't seem to be that. I had a Parmesan that kind of did that just trying to think, it was about 3 months into its aging, and then it started to swell. Same thing, and all I had at the end was a rind, and the rest was just a bubble in the middle. And I just couldn't figure out what I did wrong. And then I tried making the cheese again, paying extra attention to sanitization, like everything, all the tabletops I work on, every single utensil, including the colander, which I poured boiling water over instead of using white vinegar, all that sort of stuff, which is very hard to do. And I found that I didn't get any of that early blowing or late blowing anymore. So, yeah, so hopefully that helps a bit. John says, can you tell us how to make casseri or caciocavalli? I don't know what it is called in English, or all those three. So casseri is a little bit different than caciocavalli. They are stretch curd cheeses, and I do have them on my list. Because casseri, I think, is used as saganaki, which is an amazing dish. So, yes, that's definitely on the list. And caciocavalli was one I was going to tackle soon anyway, which is another stretch curd cheese from Italy, and casseri being from Greece. Okay, let's catch up. I've got a few here. Rock SS, I've made a few cheeses using your recipes and got a few small problems. My ricotta broke a bit on one side. What should I do with that? My ricotta. So, are you talking about ricotta salata? Because ricotta is just a cheese. It's just a massive cheese. And the Petite Blue got mold only on the sides, no mold on the top and bottom. Okay, I can answer your Petite Blue question. What has happened there is the cheese is still too moist when you took it out of the molds. And you may have found that might have flattened a little bit, but no mold on the top and bottom means that as you've turned them, there's still too much moisture. Now, blue mold won't grow when the cheese is too moist. Only red mold or Brevibacterium linens loves moist cheese, that's actually wet. Penicillium roqueforti likes the surface to be fairly dry before it'll bloom. So that's what's happened there. Mary Ann says, Gavin, in the past, you did a cheese where the whey was very milky, and I'm wondering if it was the way the recipe was supposed to be, or it should have been rested more. Yeah. Sometimes when I miscalculate in a recipe, or I don't wait long enough, and I cut the curd too early, you may see that effect. Or it depends on the season of the milk. Now, most of our milk's standardised these days anyway, so it shouldn't happen too often. But a fair few cheeses do end up with a bit of creamy whey. It's never clear. If it's clear, you've done something terribly wrong. The whey should always be slightly cloudy when you're making rennet-based cheeses. If you're making pasta filata cheeses, or acid set cheeses, you'll find the whey runs clear straight away. So, yeah, that's what's happening there. Rock lobster, I was going to say rock lobster, but rooster. Hi, Gav. I recently saw a vid on making cheese from powdered milk. What's your opinion on that? It looked disgusting, by the way. And I love your channel. Keep up the good work. Cheers from Germany. Thanks, Rocking Rooster. Yeah, don't make cheese from powdered milk. Well, I haven't personally, but I've seen the video that you're talking about, and yeah, it did look fairly disgusting afterwards. The proteins have been broken down. All the water, all the water's been removed from the separated from the milk solids and the fats, and it doesn't make a very good cheese at all. So I don't know why you would even try. Okay. But thanks for the question. And Shankle Farm says, can I ripen waxed cheese at room temperature? I'm thinking it would just age faster, or would it ruin it? Yeah, it would ruin it. I've done the same thing. I actually, some of my first cheeses, I never had a dedicated fridge for cheese making. And I did age a Wensleydale at room temperature. Thankfully, the room temperature at the time was about between 13 and 15 degrees because it was in winter here. And it turned out okay, but it was a lot stronger than the subsequent Wensleydales that I've made, which I put into the cheese cave. They're a lot milder. You'll find that the lactic bacteria just goes absolutely crazy and breeds and makes all sorts of unusual tastes, should I say. Okay. So best to keep it around 13 degrees Celsius for most wax cheeses, or whatever the recipe says. Magic the Gathering says, what would you recommend controlling your fridge for aged cheeses? I would highly recommend an external thermostat. And for anybody in Australia and New Zealand, we do have a few of those. If you drop me an email, I can give you the prices. But an external thermostat, definitely, that has a probe that goes into the fridge that you can just dangle through the fridge seal. Seems to work fine for me. And it keeps the inside, because I have a thermometer inside. It's actually a hygrometer, and it tells me the humidity and the temperature of the air inside the fridge. So that works. Okay. S says, hi, can you use regular mesophilic culture in place of Flora danica for brie? You can, but you won't get a creamy texture. You'll get a more chalky texture in the cheese, and you won't get that creamy center that you're looking for with a brie or even a camembert. Um, Regular mesophilic only has 2 cultures in it. Flora Danica has 4 starter cultures in it, and one of those makes the milk have a buttery texture and flavor, and it also produces a little bit of gas. You won't see the holes in those cheeses because they're aged fairly easy. Okay, nearly at the bottom. My goodness, and there hasn't been a question for 8 minutes. I don't know what's going on there. Axtark says, are you planning to make all the cheeses around the world in future videos? Well, that's my goal. That is indeed my goal. I'm in my early 50s. You wouldn't see it. I've got such a lovely complexion, haven't I? But yeah, early 50s. And I've got a few years left in me. So as long as YouTube hangs around, I'll keep making cheese videos. So I'll keep plodding through, finding new and interesting cheeses to make and pop up every week. So there you go. Ron says, I grow my own penicillium roquefort all the time. After sterilisation, I leave it for 2 weeks, break it in pieces and put it in the freezer. I put a small piece in milk and strain it after 10 minutes. Most definitely, Ron, that is an amazing way to make your own penicillium roquefort. If you're unsure how to do it, then it's as simple as buying a packet of DVI penicillium roquefort, and that works equally as well. But yes, you can braid it on your rye bread. Andrew says, I have used an electric steamer for cheesecloth sterilisation, and it works well. Just set the timer for 50 minutes. I had cleaned and rinsed the cloths before doing that. Yeah, that would work, Andrew. No problems at all. It'd definitely kill any bacteria or molds or yeasts that may breed in your cheesecloth. Okay. Anthony says, what cheese would you recommend for a first-timer? And another question from Magic the Gathering, what cheese do you recommend for beginners? I've actually done a video, but I'll just, which is beginners cheeses, and Kim can put the link up if you like. The cheeses that I teach in our beginners cheese making course. So first I teach, we do paneer, which is a very simple Indian cottage cheese. Then we do ricotta, or sweet ricotta, which is whole milk ricotta, which is just a white cheese, very simple as well. And then we move on to quick mozzarella. And by that stage, the 3 cheeses in 5 hours, I usually find people have had enough of cheese for that day. And they're really good beginner cheeses to get stuck into. And then from there, you could really pick any of the cheddar style varieties to make next. Any of the fresh cheeses, so any of the soft cheeses. I wouldn't make camembert and brie or mold ripened cheeses straight off the bat because they are difficult and you may get disheartened. And I wouldn't make any washed rind cheeses until you got a little bit of experience making some of those simpler cheeses. If for your first semi-hard cheese, try Caerphilly. Very simple to make. Very hard to go wrong with Caerphilly. And it ripens within 3 weeks. And it tastes absolutely fantastic. Okay. Axstar Sark says, what can go wrong with making mozzarella? Depends on what method you use. With traditional mozzarella, the only real thing that can go wrong is you don't wait long enough for the pH to go down to between 5.3 and 4.8. If it's not at the correct pH, the curds that is, when you add the hot water to it, the really hot water, it will not stretch at all. It'll just fracture. And if you do that too early, then the whole thing's messed up. With quick mozzarella, I find people don't add enough rennet. And they get this mushy curd at the end and it doesn't stretch when you use a microwave or hot way. So there's a couple of ways for a couple of techniques. Andy says, what cheeses do you recommend for melting in a similar way to raclette? Definitely any of the Alpine style cheeses. They're very mild and they taste really nice. So things like Emmentaler, Um, Piora is another good one that I've made. I've got a recipe for, and Jarlsberg. They all melt really nice and will taste equally as nice. Oh, and Gruyere is the other one. Taste equally nice on potatoes, that sort of stuff. But raclette is the traditional kind of one that they do. Using that special heater. They have a half a raclette wheel and they have a gas heater over the top and they heat bubbly brown the cheese to bubbly brown and then they scrape that off onto potatoes, pickles, and a whole bunch of other things, and it just tastes amazing. Anyway, Shlomo says, all my cheese that I make, I use. Oh, I can't understand that, mate. Sorry. I make uses something milk of something. No, looks like your fingers are on the wrong keys. And yogurt as a thermophilic. Something as a mesophilic. Oh, buttermilk as a mesophilic and yogurt as a starter, and they come out good. Yeah, that's definitely the way to do. But depends on the buttermilk. So there's two types of buttermilk. When you make butter, the stuff that oozes out doesn't have any culture in it, so don't use that. Cultured milk that they call buttermilk, it definitely has mesophilic starter culture in it. Okay, Kim, thanks very much for that. That link, which is the beginner's cheese list for with a no cheese cave. Doug says, made ricotta, but I didn't have whole milk, so had to use 2%. My wife loved it. Can I make 2% whole milk ricotta? Yeah, definitely. Has less fat in it. Yeah, it'll taste okay. No problems at all. So keep going, Doug. No problems at all. Anthony, awesome. Thank you, sir. My girlfriend and I love your content. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Anthony. And Andrew says, apart from Sage or Sage Derby, that I have made 3 times, and it's a great cheese. Have you any other suggestions for other herbs to use? Good question. Let me think. What have I seen in cheese? Dried chives is definitely a good one. There's a cheese called Cotswold, which is a variation of double Gloucester. So Cotswold cheese has dried chives in it and dried onion. So that's a really nice cheese. I've used sage in Wensleydale is another cheese I've used sage in, and that absolutely tastes great too. But I really can't think of any because most of the other herbs are really overpowering. Sage is one of the more subtle herbs. I've seen cheeses rolled in woodland, what they call woodland herbs. So things like rosemary, finely chopped, that is, rosemary, thyme, sage, and what's the other one called? Oh, starts with an M, but I can't remember it. Marjoram. Yeah, so those four, is that four? Those 4 herbs, I've seen cheese rolled in it and then matured, and they have a hard rind, and they taste really nice. I can't remember the type of what the cheese is called, but yeah, there's some other herbs that people use in cheese. Valesson says, with quick mozzarella, when it doesn't stretch, it usually turns into small clumps. When it doesn't stretch, it turns into this mushy stuff that looks like cottage cheese. And it tastes okay, but yeah, that's what happens. Michelle, which cheeses can you use to ripen in the red containers, or have you gone back to vacuum packing? Look, any cheese that says form a natural rind, I now put into those red decor containers with a cheese mat in the bottom. But I'm finding that I'm running out of room. If I use those boxes, I can't fit as many cheeses into the cheese fridge to mature. So I have to kind of regulate when I do a video. I've got to regulate which one needs a maturation box or which one I can straight vac pack or wax. So yeah, it's a bit of toing, froing to figure out how much room I've got in the cheese fridge. But usually I'll naturally ripen a cheese so it has a rind, and then I'll vacuum pack it after that, because otherwise I've just got so many cheeses that I've got to turn each week or wash every couple of days, and it's very confusing. So vacuum packing kind of hides all sins, which is a good thing. T.O. Zoe says, I want to try making little blue cheese, but I don't have any controlled temperature room, only a fridge. Also, I live in Greece and it's pretty hot outside. Any advice on how to mature it better? No, not really, because those sorts of cheeses need, I think it's between 6 and 8 degrees Celsius. So try making it in winter would be my suggestion. Or when it's the coldest time of the year, not the warmest. And I know it's supposed to be like winter over there at the moment because it's summer here. But make it at the coldest period, and if you have to mature it at room temperature, then see what happens. But you'll get very fast and accelerated, not only starter culture growth, but blue mold growth as well, because it likes warmer temperatures and it goes crazy. Ior says, thanks for the information, Gavin. You rock. Thank you very much. And Tio says, also love your cheeses. Thank you. Callum says, I love Applewood cheddar, which is a smoked variety. You can smoke cheddar cheese once it's mature. Don't try and smoke cheddar just after you pressed it, because it hasn't developed all the flavors that it should have. If you're going to cold smoke cheese, then smoke it after it's mature. Okay. So Odette, I says something from Brazil. Happy New Year. Hey, look, I can speak Portuguese. Feliz Ano Novo. So I know that's Happy New Year. But thank you, and Happy New Year to you. And Tio says, thanks a lot. I appreciate the information. Now, we're getting fairly close to the end of the show. Unless you've got any burning questions, I'll start the wrap-up. Oh, hang on a minute. Got time for a cheesy joke? I'm sure we have. Okay, here we go. Now, what cheese do they eat in the Hadron Collider? All right, I'll wait a little bit for you to give me an answer. Anyone? Anyone? The answer is quark. Okay, and one other cheese joke. Here we go. So I didn't give enough time to answer. What cheese do cyclists carry? The question: what cheese do cyclists carry? Paneer, which is the same as the baskets on the cheese. Oh, it's hilarious. Anyway, that'll do. That's enough jokes for today. Eric says, have you ever made Norwegian brown cheese? Yes, I have. It's called Myost, and if Kim can quickly get the link, it's spelled Mysost, Kim, and Eric will be able to find that. So that's Norwegian whey cheese. Andrew says, any thoughts on using cold smoking guns? They sell for about £70, which is pricey, but I would be able to smoke food as well. I haven't seen what you're talking about, but it sounds interesting. I was going to do some smoking videos. I've got a few pieces of cheese left that I probably could smoke. But yeah, I'm going to investigate it once I get my act together. Okay. Callum says, are there any benefits from the molds on the cheese? Healthy large intestine comes to mind. It helps break down stuff in your stomach. Other than that, it's just a flavour. Valerie says, is it a big problem if I put too much vinegar into a brine solution and made it too acidic, like a pH of 3.3? How would I lift the pH back up to, say, 5? Will it make the cheese sour/bitter? The only thing I could think, if you wanted to change the pH back, is add a little bit of sodium bicarbonate, only a tiny bit, and then check the pH, and that should raise it back up to what you're after. Don't think that it would affect the cheese any, but if worse comes to worse, you have to start and make a new batch. Magic at the Gathering, what's the longest time you've ever aged a cheese? 18 months and 2 years. And they were hard Italian cheeses, and they were very hard by the time I finished. Anyway, that's the end of the show. Spell it again, please, darling. M-Y, my sauce. Hang on, I'll just go to my video manager. And I'll find it for you, honey, and put it up there. Two seconds. Where is the little bugger? I can't find it myself. No, can't find it. It's there somewhere. It's in the archive. But yeah, anyway, so fantastic. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll stop there. Don't forget that you can support the show. There's enough time for a quick super chat if you want to share cheesy love. Or otherwise, pop over to patreon.com and Kim will put... Oh, Kim found it. Fantastic. Well done, honey. Pop over to patreon.com to support the show on a monthly basis for as little as, I think it's $2 US. Or could be $1 US now. They've changed it again, which is great. So absolutely fantastic. And there is a merch store. Kim's probably got a link for that somewhere too, where you can buy shirts similar to this, not this particular one, but other ones. The certified curd nerd one, and yeah, the one on the cup. And you can buy the cup. I bought it from my own shop, so that's crazy. Also, don't forget to check out lots of recipes and tips and tricks down at littlegreencheese.com. And you can buy supplies and kits like the ones up there at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. We ship internationally as well as domestically. And we've had lots of international orders this week, which has been fantastic. Anyway, thanks, Curd Nerds, for watching. Without your questions, there wouldn't be a show. I've had a ball today, and I dare say Kim has too, keeping an eagle eye on the chat to make sure she bans any naughty boys and girls. But it has been a fantastic, lovely, clean chat, and I do appreciate Kim's time. Give Kim a round of applause for helping out. Thank you very much, darling, for helping moderate the show. Anyway, we'll see the same cheesy time, same cheesy channel next week, Wednesday morning, our time, 8 o'clock. That's GMT plus 11. Yes, I do schedule them, and if you go to the live page, you'll see what time it's actually going to start. Anyway, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I'll see you next time.
Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. G'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds.